You are about to enter the American sector.
Gordon, Liddy.
Booster.
Go.
Retro.
Go.
Vital.
Go fly.
Guidance.
Guidance go.
Ecom.
We'll go fly.
Telview.
Go.
Control.
Go fly.
Inco.
We are go.
Network.
Go.
Recovery.
Go.
Capcom.
We're go fly.
Launch control. This is the G-Man. We are go for launch. And it is I, G. Gordon. All right, ladies and gentlemen, joining me now is the Honorable Morgan Griffith. He's a member of the United States House of Representatives representing the 9th District of Virginia. And his A.B. degree is from Emory and Henry College, and his law degree is from Washington and Lee University, which is a very good one. He is a lawyer and an evangelical Christian and is a member of the famed class of 2010 in the United States House of Representatives. And Congressman Griffith, welcome to the program. Thank you for sharing your valuable time with us. We appreciate it.
It's very good to be with you this afternoon.
Now, you have noticed in the time you've been in the Congress that a lot of times important matters, which you know to be important because of your position, are virtually ignored by the so-called mainstream press. And
yes, sir.
One of the things you've done is written a paper to point out how the reporting about Solyndra, while not non-existent, is certainly anemic. Would you go through that for our listeners, please?
Absolutely. Most of the mainstream media and most folks that have reported on it have focused on the fact that there was a very, very bad bet made by the administration on $535 million, which was given to Solyndra. And that is true, that happened. But where I focus on it is where there's obvious willful misconduct at best, in my opinion, where the Department of Energy decided that they were going to subordinate $75 million of that money to investors who were private financiers who just happened to have some ties to the Obama administration. And so, that raises questions in and of itself. The law where they gave the money subordination means that taxpayers go to second place, and these folks who put up private money go to first place to the detriment of the United States taxpayers. And what's really of concern is that the original loan grant for these new energy sources specifically says that the money is not to be subordinate to any other funds.
Yeah, it's illegal.
Did it anyway.
It's illegal to do that, isn't it?
That is my opinion and the opinion of most who've looked at it. The Department of Energy's lawyer, General Counsel Susan Richardson, wrote a memo saying otherwise. My opinion is it's a very poorly written memo. And in fact, when I first read it, I asked my staff to find out, when this person was admitted to the bar, because it looked like a bar school or law school exam question where, it didn't matter what the real right answer was. You just had to come up with something to defend this position.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been to law school myself, and you're right. Except when you're taking the bar exam, you don't have to come down on the correct side that the courts came down on. You just have to prove you can think like a lawyer and defend whatever the position is. But on the bar exam, you got to come down correctly, but they didn't on this one.
They did not, and it's pretty clear that they wanted to find an answer, and they said, find us a way to make this happen, because Solyndra failed to make its payment on December 1st and was declared in default by the Department of Energy, and even as that was going on, they started talking about subordination. And it appears from the emails that there was an agreement to subordinate this loan, at least a casual agreement, even before the memorandum saying that it could be done had been written.
Wow.
And so it's pretty clear they they knew this company was going to go under if something wasn't done immediately. And even with the $75 million where the taxpayers, took it on the chin, the company was gone in about 6 months after they finalized putting the taxpayers in second place.
Yeah. Well, presumably some of the property of the company was worth something. I mean, patents and trademarks.
And that's always been my guess, is that, the private financiers, the Argonaut folks, will come out fine. They may just do it off of the sale of the building, but my guess has always been is that they wanted to be in control of the intellectual property, because otherwise it makes no sense. And the reason it makes no sense is that at the time they agreed to the subordination, Secretary Chu has admitted they knew, no questions about it, the Chinese were producing and selling their competing product for less than Solyndra could make their competitor in the marketplace for solar panels.
Yeah.
So there's no way this company was going to survive. If it was a bad bet when they originally made the loan, it was just throwing money down a rat hole by the time they did the subordination. And that's what I think really needs to be investigated. We need to find out why, who gave the order for that memorandum to be written, who said, let's make sure this happens. What were the discussions that were going on? I don't believe the president was involved, but there were people at the White House who I believe had some idea of what was going on, but we don't know all that information yet.
Well,
and somebody, with a keen nose for reporting, who has Washington contacts, ought to be able to track this down. This is a story, not Democrat or Republican. It's a story of Washington ineptness at best and perhaps corruption.
Well, my understanding, and I may be wrong on this, and if I am, you correct me, is that the people who were the beneficiaries of this subordination included a prominent bundler fundraiser for Obama. Can you confirm that?
Indirectly, that is correct. Argonaut was the financier, and one of their folks is connected to the Kaiser Family Foundation. And certainly both groups have ties to the White House.
Yeah, and it would seem to me that an organization like the Washington Post, which recently devoted 5,000 words and a huge above-the-fold photograph and headlines over a prank that Mitt Romney is alleged to have committed when he was in high school, I would think that they could devote those assets to examining something serious, such as the Solyndra charges. But no, what we're treated to is all this nonsense about Mitt Romney, playing a prank on another kid. I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense. And in reality, if you believe in promoting green energy, you should be after these folks, because these folks have given green energy a black eye, and in reality, it's because the Department of Energy didn't follow the law.
Well, isn't there a pattern here? And I understand that just a day or two ago, Light Squared went under into bankruptcy, and were they not attempting to do the same thing as the Solyndra people?
I'm not in a position to speak about Light Squared. Certainly, I heard that, but I haven't studied that as well as I've studied this, so I don't want to say they were trying to do the same thing. But there is a pattern, and the pattern is that if you're connected with solar or some of the other cool kid type energies, remember back in high school there was the cool kid table for lunch.
Yeah,
it's kind of like that. It looks like the White House and their friends want to have all the cool kids sitting with them, and the solar people are cool kids. So what it looks like is that they're not paying attention to the law, they're not paying attention to good economic sense, and they're making a lot of bad investments with American taxpayer dollars. If they want to put their own money in it, that's a different story. But they're putting up American taxpayer dollars, so they can sit at the same table with the cool kids. Well, unfortunately, the uncool kids, coal, oil, natural gas, are the ones where, the American money should be invested as far as looking for jobs. Maybe the taxpayers shouldn't do it again, but if you're going to look at where jobs can be created, then we should do the XL Keystone Pipeline. We should be looking at drilling for oil off the coast. We should make sure that we're not crippling the coal industry, and we should look into, building pipelines to carry our vast amounts of natural gas to all the businesses of America, not just to the few where the lines already go.
All right. Well, Congressman Griffith, we need to take a quick pause for the benefit of our advertisers to get some commercials here. Can you take the time to stand by for a few moments while we get that done? I appreciate it very much. Folks, I'm speaking with Congressman Morgan Griffith, who is a member of the United States House of Representatives, represents the Commonwealth of Virginia's 9th District. And right after these words, we'll return.
And no area is more ripe for such innovation than energy. You can see the results of last year's investments in clean energy. In the North Carolina company that will create 1,200 jobs nationwide helping to make advanced batteries, or in the California business that will put 1,000 people to work making solar panels.
This is the G. Gordon Liddy Show.
NASA announced they have found a planet circulating 2 suns. You hear about this? A planet that has 2 suns. And even more amazing, that solar company, Solyndra, went bankrupt on that planet too.
The G-Man is back.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm back, and I'm in mid-conversation with Congressman Morgan Griffith, who is the United States representative for the Commonwealth of Virginia's 9th Congressional District. And Mr. Griffith, you are a member of the famed class of 2010. I think there was 89 of you who came in there and swept into office.
Yes, sir.
With the
Yes, sir.
Tea Party and backing and what have you. Now, I understand you have your own caucus. Would that be correct?
The freshman class does have a caucus. We get together fairly regularly. Obviously, there's some difference of opinion even within that group, but we all came to Washington, I believe, to make a difference, to change things, to try to cut back on spending, and try to make Washington a little more sane. We're making small progress, but obviously it's going to take a long time to bring Washington back to sanity.
Well, I certainly agree with that. Now, tell me, are you under pressure? I don't mean you particularly, but I mean, the whole group of you are sort of under pressure to go along, to get along from what I could call the institutional members of the House or the Republicans.
Well, there is always some of that. That being said, I feel that the folks that have been there for a long time also respect us. They know that they wouldn't be committee chairmen or have their leadership posts per se if it weren't for our class coming in. So, their job is to try to make the system work to the best of their ability. I appreciate and understand that, and our job is to try to put the brakes on the spending and to try to make things happen in a different way. And so we're sometimes in a little bit of conflict. But look, our leadership is 1,000 times better than the leadership that was there with Nancy Pelosi. And I am very appreciative of our leadership giving us the opportunities to speak our mind. We have a lot more open rules, and we're able to put amendments in. We don't always win those amendments, but we're at least able to put amendments in and stand up for what we believe in.
Well, that's of course very helpful. But you mentioned putting a brake on spending. I imagine that's one of the most difficult things you have to do or to accomplish, is to put a brake on spending, because the spending has been in the past years sort of like a runaway freight train going downhill.
It has been, and it is difficult because it's hard to stop that runaway freight train's momentum. I do think that we have slowed it, and there's no question about that. if we can this fall get a new executive and some new members in the Senate, I think we can slow it down a lot more and eventually, stop the deficit spending and start working on our massive national debt.
Which is just enormous. It's very difficult to even conceive of that amount of money. Because my understanding is that the use of language in the Congress is not the same as the use of language in the rest of the country. Now, what do I mean by that? When you say to the average guy or gal out in the countryside, we want to cut something, they think of something as a reduction from a baseline, whereas in Congress, a cut merely means a reduction in the rate of increase. Would that be a fair statement?
That has been a fair statement. We're trying to change that particular language, and sometimes we've been successful and sometimes we haven't. But you're right, that has been the standard fare in Washington for a long time, but there's no question the freshman class is trying to change that, and we're looking at not what we expected to spend, but what did we spend last year or 2 years ago, and we're trying to bring that number down.
Best case scenario, in other words, let's say we're fortunate enough to have Governor Romney win the presidency, we retain control of the House of Representatives, and we gain control of the Senate. How long do you think it would take to diminish that, not so much the deficit, but the debt, the national debt, which is, $16 trillion?
That's right. It's getting right there. I don't know how long it would take us to start diminishing the national debt. Step one is to stop the deficits. Even the most conservative plans out there don't get rid of the deficit in year one. And in fairness, I'm not sure you could get rid of it in year one. Right now, the Ryan plan is projected to take about 28, 29 years. Now, if the economy comes back, if people realize that we're going to make policies that are good for jobs, as opposed to having policies that are bad for jobs, as the last 4 years we've had, then that number shrinks, and you can make it less than that. There are other plans that would do it. The RSC, the Republican Study Committee plan, would have done it in under a decade, got rid of the deficit.
Congressman, unfortunately, we've run out of time. I have just enough time for me to thank you so much for sharing your time with us. We do appreciate it. Look forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.